And don't sleep on freaking Dricus duplesis. He's the middleweight champion for a reason. You know what? For this alone, I'm going to double down on my support for Dricus duplesis. Dricus is winning this fight. I said it. Dricus duplesis, my African brother, the only representative with a belt, the only African representative with a belt in the UFC. He will win Khamzat Chimaev. You can take that to the bank.
All three judges score this contest 50-44.
I hope this video ages very well.
And no!
Emotional damage.
This is going to be one of the hardest videos I've had to do in a very long time. Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, welcome to episode 43 of the show. Let's have a conversation about UFC 319. Before I start, this is going to be my humble pie video. I'm owning it right now. I am owning my humble pie. Done with all humility. But first, like, share, subscribe, hit the notification button, engage in the comment section. Listen, I'm just gonna get right into it. This video, the last video I did not age well. That video aged like goddamn soured milk in broad daylight sunlight. It aged poorly, less than 24 hours. I've never seen a video age that bad. I am the proud owner of that. But I'm going to be talking about the main card. The main card and all the fights of the main card, especially because the main card is the shit, right? Okay, we're going to be talking about Miller versus Asukara. We'll be sharing my thoughts on Cannonier versus MVP. From there, I'm going to transition to Carlos Prates versus Jeff Neal. Then we're going to discuss Aaron Pico versus Lauren Murphy. And then we're going to discuss the main event. Dricus duplesis versus Khamzat Chimaev, aka the Boars. Without much ado, I'm trying to keep this video under 30 minutes, give or take. So bear with me. It might be a quick dash and smash and dash. So let's get right into it. First things first, my quick thoughts on Miller versus on the entire fight. The entire card. Brilliant card. Beautiful card. Probably one of the better cards we've had this year. There have been some fairly good ones, but this was a really good card. This is one of those cards where you enjoy spending your 85 plus taxes and still feel good about yourself. That being said, let me get right down into the specifics. Miller versus Asukara. First things first, I'm going to repeat this. I keep saying the UFC is light years ahead of any promotion out there. The UFC, the talent pool in the UFC is just, it's ridiculous, right? This is Kai Asukara, who's the superstar in Japan. I think he was in Rising. I'm not sure. I think it was Rising. Superstar in Japan, doing all sorts of spectacular stuff. The UFC brings him over to fight Pantoja because Pantoja had run out of contenders in his division. Pantoja made light work of Asukara. Asukara has come back now to fight Tim Miller. And as much as I thought Asukara was at least gonna come back here to try to prove something, try to prove why he deserves to be in the UFC. He just got, he got outclassed, got choked out in the first round, I believe, by Miller. So how good is Asukara? Is he good? You guys think he's good? I don't think so. I don't want to use the word fraud checked, because I feel like those terms are being thrown around so easily. And also because he hasn't been hyped very much by the UFC. I think the term fraud check is best used when the UFC artificially promotes or hypes up some fighters. Not going to say any name. Some people said Bo Nickel. Oops. Sorry. Like, hey. All right, that's what some people said. I'm sorry, that slipped. But that's my point, right? Asukara needs to go back and really reevaluate, what he wants to do in the UFC. If that means he has to work on his grappling and his wrestling, because that's how he's been taken out twice now. His wrestling is poor. He's better in the striking because, quite frankly, Asukara looked very crisp and sharp against Miller. Miller's fighting style, pretty awkward. It sort of reminded me of Dominic Cruz. There's a lot of awkward movement in there, especially being at that weight class. A lot of awkward movements, but listen, doesn't matter, awkward movements. If anything, DDP, Renier de Ridder, Dominic Cruz, they've shown that awkward movements can be effective, because when you have awkward movements, it's very hard to have people replicate what you're doing. So, Asukara, get back to the drawing board, bro. You can't. I don't know if you're ready for the UFC. Transition. Jared Cannonier versus MVP. Let me put it this way. After going into the third round, I feel like Jared Cannonier should have applied the same tactics he used in the third round from the very first round. Because even though he managed to get MVP to the ground, he wasn't able to do much to win the fight. He did. I gave Jared Cannonier the third round, but MVP was already dominant in the first and second round, and I mean dominant. He had one knockdown of Jared Cannonier in the first round, super fast, and then he had another knockdown of Jared Cannonier in the second round. And after that, Cannonier was just, he was cautious. He was cautious. He couldn't deal with MVP's movement. He couldn't deal with MVP's speed. He actually couldn't even deal with MVP's power, right? I think most people are very scared to shoot on MVP because of what he did to Cyborg when he was out of the UFC. Nobody wants to have a cracked skull when they're shooting for a takedown, because that's a reality. When you fight MVP, there is nobody who's going to see that video and not think about, when I say that video, I mean the video of MVP cracking Cyborg's skull with a flying knee. If anybody sees that video and you want to take a shot on MVP to scramble, you're going to have to, contend with that. And has second thoughts. And I think that's where Cannonier's mind was at. Plus, MVP was just way faster, way more technical. He was showboating. It was vintage MVP. He was showboating. He was making fun of Cannonier. He was mocking him, almost like, you listen, bro, take it easy, relax. I've got more in the pipeline. And another thing I noticed. So Cannonier might not have even had that third round because MVP slipped when he tried. I think he had tried a Superman punch, but slipped on the delivery. And when he slipped, Cannonier capitalized on that, and that's how Cannonier was able to get him to the ground and keep him there pretty much for the whole third round. And, you know, I keep telling people, right? You have to give Ian Gary some credit. I'm sorry, I know you guys don't like Ian Gary. I'm one of those people who didn't like Ian Gary as well. But I've got to respect Ian Gary. Ian Gary steps up. I'm not trying to, you know, make a case for Ian. It's just what it is. Ian Gary steps up. Ian Gary has been fairly dynamic in his career so far. I'm looking forward to his next fight. And he completely switched up the game plan on MVP. And I think everybody who fights MVP should go back and look at the Ian Gary fight or MVP's fight with, I think it's Lima in Bellator, and take some notes from it. Those are the only two ways to really neutralize Michael Venom Page. You know, but hey, Cannonier, listen, I saw a video recently of Jared Cannonier talking about how he wants to keep fighting because he's broke and doesn't have money. It's unfortunate that is the reason. I always support people who want to feed their families, but I don't know how long he's going to do this. He's not going on a title run. He's 41, I believe. Still looks good for 41, but bro, he might need to hang it up or do something really spectacular in the next 2 or 3 fights. Otherwise, he's going to get cut from the UFC. That's how I see it. I might be wrong. Okay. Let's see. Carlos Prates versus Jeff Neal. We're transitioning now. Guys, what do I always say about Carlos Prates? If you follow this channel, what I always say about Carlos Prates is this. Carlos Prates is a bad man. He's a bad man. He's a bad stud. You understand what I'm saying? It is just what it is. Look at his fight history. Look at the record outside of the UFC and even the talent he's brought into the UFC. You gotta give it to him. But before I continue, what the hell kind of perv mustache did Carlos Prates and Gerald Meerschaert have? those mustaches. I'm sorry, they look like pervs. Come on. And I'm not trying to be disrespectful. It's just joking. We're joking over here, okay? But yeah, those not really good looks. But that's not what we're here for. That fight was the Carlos Prates and Jeff Neal fight was a good strike first. It was really good. My problem with Jeff Neal was this. Jeff Neal, sir, this is a mixed martial arts fight. I feel like Jeff Neal should be, he should go to boxing. He doesn't really use his legs. He doesn't really scramble, do takedowns just as much. I think Jeff Neal feels like he has so much confidence in his hands and his punches that he doesn't really apply himself to other tools he could use. That's how I feel. And that's what sort of played out in this fight with Jeff Neal and Carlos Prates. Neal was sharp, he was very crisp. He pressured Carlos Prates very well. Tried to wrestle at some point in the first round. Tried to wrestle. And even Carlos Prates was sort of mocking him, talking to him, you know, on the cage, like, oh, you want to wrestle? You want to wrestle? Nah, I thought this was going to be a strike fest, you know? But I don't know. It didn't seem like, you know, it didn't seem to me like Jeff Neal was there to be a well-rounded fighter. And Carlos Prates was able to throw very good strikes, maintain the distance. He kept that fight within striking range, right? He kept that fight in his ballpark, more or less. He didn't make it ugly. He was on the outside, moving very well. Lateral movement was very good, with good angles. His angles were like really, really crisp. Jeff Neal just had nothing. It felt to me like Jeff Neal when he fought, I believe, Stephen Wonderboy Thompson. It's like he had no answers. Now, granted, Wonderboy is on a different level. We get it. But, you know, Jeff Neal is just, he should be a boxer. He should be a boxer. Because it's usually just the hands of steel he has. That's the only weapon he has in his arsenal, as far as I'm concerned. And I think, like, we're beginning to see that. He just goes in there and he hopes that he's able to land or find the opening to land one heavy shot to put you out. He does have legit one punch KO power. But you gotta be able to hit the target to get your KO. And Jeff Neal was not able to do that against Prates. And at some point, before the buzzer, after the 10-second countdown, the last 10 seconds, before the buzzer, Carlos Prates comes out of nowhere with a perfectly timed spinning back elbow that completely tore out, like it busted up Jeff Neal's temple. His left temple. It was beautiful. And when Carlos Prates landed that, it was the end. Like, Jeff Neal was out before he hit the ground. Bruh. It was, listen, I was off the edge of my seat. I stood up, I was screaming, I was shouting, I was like, what the hell? Carlos Prates is a bad man. That is the truth. Once again, the fighting nerds have proven that training, that fight camp, that gym, those guys know what the hell they're doing. The fighting nerds, right? And I've always said my favorite fighting nerd is Mauricio Rufy. I love him. I love Rufy. I wasn't really big on Kai Boario, but he's warming up, you know, I'm warming up to him. He's sort of getting, you know, in my good graces. Not that he was in the bad graces anyway, but he's getting in my good graces. I like him. I actually like Carlos Prates, I'm sorry. But when he fought Ian Gary exposed him, and a lot of us were saying that, you know, it's because of his smoking. No, his smoking is great. I'll get to that later. And back to the fighting nerds. Yeah, you guys know my favorite, my least favorite of the fighting nerds is Jin Silva. For many reasons I can't explain now. I just don't like his, you know, the extra antics, right? He's just too animated for me. He might grow on me later. Let's just be patient. We'll see. But I've got to give it to Carlos Prates. The man still smokes. You know how we all said, you know, the smoking and bad habits, those habits, right, affected his last fight with Ian Gary, and that's why he lost. But the dude never stopped what he was doing, and he still won Jeff Neal. Now, in spectacular fashion, he asked for $50K on the spot. He got the $50K bonus, and also I appreciated what he did in the Octagon interview. The post-fight Octagon interview. Carlos Prates made a case for his training partner to join the UFC. I love that. I love that. And you could tell on Dana's face, Dana was very excited, and Dana is going to give that, whoever that dude is, Dana is going to give that dude a shot based on the request from Carlos Prates. And listen, if you've got to go anywhere and you can't take your boys with you, it's unfortunate. But if you can help and take your people with you, I always appreciate that. Always. All right, Sean O'Malley, you need to learn a few things. Go back to smoking, you know, the weed and doing the content. And who knows, you might have something better for us later. Okay, let's transition to bruh. Aaron Pico. Aaron Pico versus Lerone Murphy. Again, and I don't want to sound like a broken record. I think at this point, the UFC should stop signing high-profile talents from other fight promotions. The UFC should sign all of them. Any fight promotion that is outside of the UFC, if UFC wants to bring some talents from in there, I think at this point what the UFC should do is put all talents from outside the UFC, and I don't care if they're champions in whatever organizations they are, whatever fight promotions, the UFC should bring them in and put them on some kind of contender series or something. Put them somewhere to earn a contract. You can't just sign them direct. Because Aaron Pico is one of those people. Comes in from another promotion, gets into the UFC, so much hype over the last 2 months. Gets in there with Lerone Murphy. Two high-profile strikers. Two extremely good fighters. Listen, Pico was doing pretty good. His boxing was crisp. His grappling was very good as well. He was giving Lerone Murphy some problems. But every now and then, Murphy would land a few shots to make Pico stay back. But Pico didn't care. Aaron Pico just kept on. I think Aaron Pico kept on moving forward and not respecting Lerone Murphy's power. And Aaron Pico, in my personal opinion, wanted to prove himself in his UFC debut. And that caused him to be completely reckless. And because he was reckless, Lerone Murphy personified the saying, power beats precision and timing beats speed. Because that was what happened, right? Aaron Pico tried to strike at some point with Lerone Murphy. He moves in and Murphy sees him coming from a mile away and times that probably one of the most beautiful spinning back elbows I have ever seen in my entire life. It was so good. It was so crisp. It was actually better than the spinning back elbow from the match before between Carlos Prates and Jeff Neal. And when that elbow touched Aaron Pico, my man was knocked out. Like, Aaron Pico reminded me of when he was so knocked out. He reminded me of when Josh Emmett literally rearranged Bryce Mitchell's face. Like Bryce, that KO Josh Emmett gave Bryce Mitchell, one of the scariest KO I've ever seen. He reminded me about that. There's a spinning back kick KO by Uriah Hall. If you guys can remember, bruh, it was nasty. Let's just put it that way. It was a nasty KO. You know, Pico got aggressive, you know, and he got too confident, in my personal opinion. That's what I think. You know, at some point, he even ate a knee by Leron Murphy in that fight, and you would think these things, these little cues Leron Murphy was giving him about, you know, listen, I have power. You can't just keep coming forward. And Leron Murphy talked about this leading up to the fight. He said he's going to use Aaron Pico's aggressive forward movement against him. And Pico didn't care to adjust. And now he has on his record the UFC debut in one of the worst ways. He's going to make a comeback, don't get me wrong. Until that point, what I saw, Aaron Pico is pretty good. Aaron Pico is no patchy mix. Right? He's no Kai Asukara. He's no Michael Chandler. That dude is actually good. He just met the better man on this particular night. So I see him coming back. I see him still making waves. I still see it, right? For some reason, I'm not going to bash him and say, well, he's talent from another organization and it's usually just a lot less than talent in the UFC. Aaron Pico came in there looking very sharp, like a really good fighter. He looked very well rounded. His wrestling and his scrambling looked like it would have been a problem. But Leron Murphy capitalized, stayed calm, stayed measured, spotted that opportunity and just landed that beautiful spinning back elbow. One of the best I've ever seen in a very long time. And we have, you know, on the main card of this, we have 2 spinning back elbow KOs. Back to back, consecutively. I've never seen that happen. So that was a first. Now, Leron Murphy, what do we do with him? What do we do with Leron Murphy? Do we give him one more fight before he faces Volkanovski? That's what I was thinking. But then Volkanovski responds and says he's ready to fight Pico in December. Sorry, not Pico. He's ready to fight Leron Murphy in December. I'm all for it. Let Volkanovski cook. But I'm having no preferences going into that fight. And now speaking about preferences. So, we're going to talk about DDP. I know this is what you guys have been waiting for. My apology message to all the guys who said Khamzat Chimaev is going to destroy DDP. So, as some of you may know, I had a video uploaded the day before the fight, the day before UFC 319. And I was responding to how DDP was being treated by the fans and the casuals at the press conference. And he was being booed, like hard boos. So that just made me root for DDP. I was hoping DDP would win, you know. So I'd like to take this opportunity to apologize to everybody who said Khamzat Chimaev was going to win DDP. I apologize. I'm coming out. I'm saying it. I'm taking my humble pie on this one. You guys are going in the comment section. I mean, dudes are going in. I've been having a ball laughing at how many people are laughing at me for hoping that DDP will be the one to come out of that victory. Bro, I sort of understood that Khamzat was going to be the one to really to beat DDP. It was going to be quite a fight. I knew it. But DDP always finds a way to win, right? So there's that little flicker of hope that he's going to do the same thing in this fight. Bruh. In rounds 1 to rounds 3, so rounds 1, 2, and 3, Khamzat Chimaev got a takedown on DDP within the first 5 to 10 seconds of rounds 1, 2, and 3. And then in rounds 4 and 5, Khamzat Chimaev took DDP down within the first 30 seconds. And not just take him down, he took him down and kept him there. He completely ragdolled DDP. Completely. Now, listen. When I say one thing, I'm going to say the other. It wasn't the most exciting fight. It really wasn't. It sort of reminded me of Tyron Woodley versus Kamaru Usman when Kamaru won the belt from Woodley. Sort of reminded me like that of that fight. It's like it was a grapple and wrestle fest. But it's Khamzat Chimaev. We know that is what Khamzat is going to do. He's proven it time and time again that is how he fights. Right? I didn't really think Khamzat was gonna take DDP out in the first 2 rounds. I honestly didn't think that. But I also didn't think Khamzat was going to dominate DDP for 5 rounds. DDP had no answers, multiple takedowns. He had no way to scramble back up until the 5th round, where he sort of tried to scramble back up. And even when Mark Goddard, the referee, stood them up from a position, DDP didn't take advantage of it. DDP only started, letting his hands loose halfway through the 5th round. Bruh, and even at that point, Khamzat was still dominant in the 5th round. So the threat of Khamzat losing the 5th round came sometime towards the last 2 minutes of the 5th round. Khamzat was very comfortable in there. And guys, for all of you who keep talking about Khamzat Chimaev's cardio, this is the last time I want to hear that conversation. Khamzat Chimaev has shown that he has championship round gas tank because he looked fresh in rounds 4 and 5 until maybe the last minute and a half of the entire fight. And even then, if there was a 6th round, I'm pretty confident that Khamzat would have come in there still able to work on his conditioning and cardio. Like, it would not have made a difference. He completely destroyed Dricus. Like, I don't think you guys understand why I'm shocked. Well, not really shocked. Well, actually I am. I understood, again, that Khamzat could win. I just didn't understand. I just didn't appreciate that Khamzat would be able to go in there and do what he did to DDP for 5 rounds. Bruh, the scorecards was 50-45, unanimously. That is what dricus duplesis refers to as a hiding. Remember that when he said that?
But Khamzat's next. Khamzat is next. I want the Khamzat next. I think he deserves a hiding.
I'm sure he's watching. Do you have a message for him?
No. Stay out of the cold.
Fair enough.
Khamzat, he's next. He deserves a hiding. Yeah, that's what Khamzat did. Khamzat gave you a hiding. Goodness gracious. So, hey, listen. Credit where credit is due. Those of you who called me out, I'm very happy you did. I'm going to take this one. I'm going to take it to the bank. We're going to regroup. We no longer have any African champions in the UFC. That is fine. It was bound. It was a good time. It was a good reign when it happened. We'll see who the next prospect is from the continent. I don't know. I don't see it happening anytime soon. But you never can tell. You can never tell. You know? But guys, on a final note, can we put some respect on Gilbert Burns' name? And also, can we put a big respect, a big ass respect on Kamaru Usman's name? Because Kamaru Usman and Gilbert Burns are the only guys that have made Khamzat Chimaev look human. Honestly. And much credit, I'd like to say much credit to Gilbert Burns, but Gilbert had enough time to prepare for Khamzat. And he still gave him a war and lost. Kamaru Usman had less than 2 weeks notice, went in there and still gave him a war, even though he lost. But not as big a war as Gilbert Burns gave him. Like, I think like those two fights pretty much showed Khamzat Chimaev that he needed to work on his cardio. And this fight with DDP shows that there is a major improvement on Khamzat Chimaev's cardio. You can't even question it. You can't. Bruh, DDP had 4 strikes in the first 2 rounds. 4 strikes. Because Khamzat just didn't let up. He didn't give him any chance to do all that shit. Boy. I don't want to even go into the conversation about the crucifix. It was just, listen, Khamzat did it. Khamzat did it. I'm happy for him. On a very serious note, I'm happy for Khamzat. Khamzat Chimaev, we know his journey. We know when he got into the UFC. We've seen his fights. We've all tuned in. And we've all sort of known that Khamzat will be a champion at some point, either in the 170 division or the 185 division. And he's finally got it at 185, that's fine. I hear some talks about him thinking about going back to 170 to be a double division champ. No, sir, I think if you want to be a 2 division champ right now, Khamzat Chimaev, have a few fights in your division, defend your belt at least 2 or 3 times, then move up to 205. Because easier, you know, it's easier to gain weight to 205 than it is for Khamzat to cut weight to 170. Did you hear me? It's easier for Khamzat Chimaev to gain weight and fight at 205, the light heavyweight division, than it is for him to lose weight and fight at the welterweight division. So, if those are the plans for Khamzat Chimaev, I'm happy for him. Who's next for Khamzat? Renier the Ritter? Who's next for DDP? Because it's certainly not getting any rematch. Just DDP will have at least 2 or 3 more fights to get himself back into title contention. So the next man might be Renier the Ritter, or the fight between Imavov and Kai Bohario. And whichever of those 2 guys wins, yeah, I'm very confident at this point that Khamzat Chimaev is going to be the winner, or is going to be the champion in the middleweight division for a pretty long time. At least the next 2 or 3 fights, easy. I don't see Imavov winning Khamzat Chimaev. I don't see Kai Bohario winning Khamzat Chimaev. I don't see Renier the Ritter winning Khamzat Chimaev. These are the 3 guys. But of all 3 guys who are next possible fights for Khamzat Chimaev, Renier the Ritter is the only one with the grappling and scrambling skills, the wrestling and jiu-jitsu skills, or the ground skills, that might, and this is a long stretch, but he might be the one to give Khamzat the most problems on the ground. I don't think so. I'm just putting it out there, okay? And with that being said, Mr. TDC is out. If you've been here this long, thank you. I appreciate you. I love you guys. Damn, this was a big humble pie. This was something that I had to swallow, man. God, this was a tough one, you know? But it's the sport. It's what happens. We love it. Things like this is what makes this sport the greatest sport in the world. I'm sorry. Soccer, get out of here. Basketball, yeah, out of here. NFL, out of here. Baseball, even worse. Boxing, MMA? MMA is the shit. Mr. TDC is out. Peace.